So the talk I'm giving today is part of an MB program called the New Zealand Sustainability Dashboard that's just coming to a close. So what we've delivered is a proof of concept for an online tool for biodiversity assessments. But I think in terms of thinking more broadly about what we were trying to achieve is demonstrate a process of co-designing evidence-based tools, which we hope you'll be able to see applications beyond what we've done here. And we're building on some work that's been done by the Cool Farm Alliance, which is a cooperative of big multi-corporate organizations like Unilever, PepsiCo, Kellogg's, so some big players in the international markets. And they teamed up with an organization called the Conservation Evidence Team that are based at Cambridge University, and more recently a colleague who shifted over to the University of East Anglia, and they've generously shared their IP, which is influencing the work that you'll see today. So we came across this work through a conference organized by the Sustainability Consortium, which again involved a lot of these big multi-corporate organizations that were addressing the challenge of how do you measure biodiversity. So you've got two axes here, one about certainty and one about the ease of measuring biodiversity. So if you try and measure something that's really hard to measure and there's lots of uncertainty in terms of being able to measure change in there, you're basically wasting your time and your resources. So what a lot of the programs tend to do in terms of measuring so like quality assurance type programs tend to focus on an action. So it's easy for a farmer to tell you whether they're doing a particular action or not. The challenge is we're uncertain about whether those actions are actually delivering the outcomes that we're looking for. In terms of our business, we tend to focus more at this end. We try to measure the outcomes for biodiversity. But the challenge with that is you need lots of different methods to measure biodiversity. You need special expertise. It tends to be very expensive. So that's not very practical in terms of a sort of farmer implementing on the ground or industry implementing on the ground. So what this group have come up with is a compromise where they bring together a concept that's used in medical literature or medical practice, where they basically look at the evidence using an expert panel to say what's the likelihood that this treatment will deliver the outcome that you're trying to achieve. But we're doing it in terms of an environmental context, and I'll explain a bit more as I go through the talk. So what are we trying to deliver in terms of our tool? Well, as a farmer, I want them to be able to go online and answer the question, how nature friendly or wildlife friendly are my actions that I'm taking on my farm? But having done that exercise, potentially using the tool to say, well, what are the actions I should be taking next to achieve the goals that I want to achieve on the ground? But what we hope is that the tool will actually inform a whole load of other needs. So for example, you might be trying to get information about farm environment plans. Can they fill out that questionnaire and that information feeds through to that? Could that information be packaged up to tell a better story about New Zealand's biodiversity and its agricultural landscapes? And using that information to inform your markets, either as a farmer or as an industry or as a country. So one of the first features that we had to address is how do we tell the New Zealand biodiversity story using this tool, and how New Zealand is working to enhance it. So to do this, we set out and did this quite intensive exercise with a group of, I think it's probably about 30 different experts from about 20 different organizations from a whole range of different sectors covering livestock, horticulture, NGOs, and government agencies in there, and some consultants as well. The critical thing here is we weren't trying to quantify what each of these organizations were trying to achieve. We were more trying to draw on this community and their understanding of what they thought would be useful and valuable to their organizations, but also what they thought farmers would find useful as well. And we're interested in two key components. What are the biodiversity groups that people are most interested in, and what are the management actions that people think are delivering the biodiversity outcomes that they are interested in? And we cross-checked that by doing a shorter survey, online survey, inviting a wider range of farmers and growers and other parties that are involved in managing the agricultural landscape to tell us what they felt were what mattered to them in terms of these things. And we cross-checked those two different data sources to prioritize a shorter list of biodiversity groups and actions to tell New Zealand's biodiversity story. So I'm just going to give you a very quick synopsis of some of the results. So we gave them 18 different biodiversity groups to prioritize, and these were the top 10 that came out. You'll see it includes both plants, animals, and invertebrates, as well as a bit DNA coming to play again. One of the key features is a very strong focus on native groups. Another feature is a focus on wetlands and waterways and species associated with those. And what really came out from talking to the industry and farmer groups is they were really interested in biodiversity that supports production as well. So these groups were represented in this section. Then we gave them a list of 80 different management actions or so to prioritize to go into the tool, and we narrowed them down to about 35. When we look at where those actions are associated, most of them were associated with production areas, where people were producing food, but also some quite high proportions of actions across small non-production areas and large non-production areas. So we've got this list of biodiversity groups and actions. Now we want to ascertain what are the likelihood of those actions delivering the desired biodiversity outcomes. And we did this through a panel process, and there are two elements to it. The first one is really about, in your expert opinion, what do you think the likelihood of this particular action delivering the desired biodiversity outcome? And a second exercise where we're looking at the scientific literature, how well does that literature actually back up those opinions? So we started out with a group of 10 biodiversity specialists from a whole range of different organizations, CRIs, universities, government departments, and consultants contributed to this exercise. And what they did is they individually first scored for each action and each biodiversity group what the likely outcome of the action was for that group. And we asked them to score 3 different things. How beneficial is this action going to be for the target group? How harmful is this action? And how certain are you about your answers? And then we got the information together, and we asked them to review the information in light of the results that came across the whole panel. And we asked them to categorize those actions according to their likelihood to deliver the benefits. So shifting from percentages to categories. So is this action definitely going to deliver a benefit? It's likely to deliver a benefit, but there's some uncertainty in there. But we're on another category which encompassed a whole range of different scenarios, but basically unlikely or not going to deliver a benefit for biodiversity group. So just to give you a very quick synopsis of that result, what we asked them to do was a very big exercise. It was over almost 500 different combinations we asked them to consider. About 7% of them, they basically decided they didn't know what the outcome would be. 56% were either unlikely to deliver benefits or were ineffectual or harmful. And then you've got this 37% at this end of the scale that are potentially going to, are likely or will deliver benefits. So, so we've fulfilled that exercise. We're now just doing a very small pilot for a couple of management actions just to demonstrate the process of gathering the scientific literature for those actions and running through a very similar process to see how the two results compare. So I guess this is what I think is what we hope is the aspiration for developing tools like this, is that capitalizing on a resource like the Conservation Evidence Database, where they've pulled together global literature and they've got protocols together for doing that evidence evaluation. There's an opportunity for us to build on that capability, but also to contribute back. So what are some of the scores and evidence that we've gathered within New Zealand that can contribute to that process, and can we actually help to gather some information that might address key gaps that are important to New Zealand that might also benefit others overseas. So in terms of going back to, we had the prioritization exercise where we've got the different management actions that came out of that exercise. We've constructed a very simple questionnaire. So did you do this action, yes, no, or checklist of actions. And then we've got the scores that came out of that specialist judgment process that tell us what's the likelihood of that action delivering. So what the tool does, as the farmer's filling out this questionnaire, is doing the calculations behind the scenes and is giving them live results as they work through the questionnaire. So it's packaged up some very complex information into a very simplistic way. We're at the stage now where we have a prototype tool that's ready for testing, so we're inviting people to have a look. And the idea is that we'll document, do as many improvements as we can, but document the ones that we can't in the short time frame that we have left. And the idea is that we've basically delivered a proof of concept about how to design one of these tools, but also we'll be able to demonstrate what we think are the next steps and some of the lessons that we've learned in doing so. So just a final slide. So in terms of what we're trying to achieve here is we're trying to deliver tools that are useful and relevant, and in doing so, what we've done, so in delivering the biodiversity ability to tell New Zealand's biodiversity story, we're actually delivering a tool that hopefully delivers what matters to the stakeholders on the ground. And in doing that, we've learned about what people value and how to align to those values. In terms of the middle section, what we've done is we've addressed this challenge of using evidence in terms of your management decisions. What we're doing is bringing together specialists to give you information on, to help you, make best use of scientific evidence. And in doing that, we're generating evidence that could be used not just for the tool that we're producing, but that evidence could be used in a whole host of other management scenarios or policy scenarios that you're working or need. But also it tells us where there's evidence gaps as well, so where you potentially should be thinking about focusing resourcing for future research. And the final one is really about what we tried to do here is narrow that gap between practice and performance. So by packaging up this information into a very accessible way, we hope that we're empowering stakeholders on the ground to make informed decisions that will result in improvements in terms of the management. In terms of developing that tool, we hope that also learning about what people will find useful and how that tool could be governed to best meet their needs, we're also informing on tool governance as well. So just to finish, you can find out more information about the project in a broader sense, as well as our tool on this website. And the prototype tool is available through that link. You can also access it through the web page. And feel free to contact us if you've got any questions. I should have said earlier, Angela Brandt, who's talking next, has been very actively involved in this tool design. So if you've got any questions, you can also ask her.